In part three, we're going to build on what we've already done a little bit. I've opened up another student image that's already been edited a certain amount. I'll show you what I've done. Started with the background. I added a retouch blemishes layer, a retouch lines layer. I composited all of those layers together, lifted or jumped the face up to a second layer, and smoothed the skin the way we did in the last video. Now, what makes this image so great is the student is playing around with the nearly complementary colors of orange and green, and the cosmetics, the eyeshadow, the lips, the nails are all kind of in orange, and she has a green sweater on and her eyes are greenish. But I think we can improve on that a little bit, and based on what we did with the last portrait using curves for color, let's see if we can take this a little bit further and then apply that technique to some additional things. I'm going to zoom in just a little bit here. One thing that I notice is the lips are orange, but they're not as saturated and bright as the eyeshadow. So I want to bring those up a little bit. So using the technique that we did last time, what I'm going to do is go into the quick mask mode and create a selection using my brush, 100% opacity. Now you could also try to do this with the quick selection tool, but it might have a hard time finding the edge of the lips. If you get more advanced, you could also create a path using the pen tool to do this. But for right now, I think the kind of adjustment that we're doing here, I think just using the quick mask mode and a brush is going to do just fine. Now I'm getting the lips. Do I get the teeth in between? They were so small, we're probably not going to see that very much, but I'm actually going to switch over to white and delete some of that, and then switch back over to black with a little bit smaller brush and paint in just that part of the lips. And again, we can always tailor that later if we feel like we need to refine it a bit. But I think that's going to be pretty good for what we're doing. I exit the quick mask mode. You see that that now becomes a selection. I'm going to create a curves adjustment layer. I'm going to switch the blending mode for this to color, although I may end up using it also to control the luminosity. And I'm going to just quickly rename that layer lip color. Okay, now I want to make those lips more orange, but there is no orange channel. Now orange is comprised somewhat of red and yellow. I think we know that from our Crayola coloring crayon set way back in the day. So I'm going to use red. I'm going to boost red, and then I also need to boost yellow, and yellow is the opposite of blue. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to red, and I'm going to bring red up. You can see we get more red. And then I'm going to go to to blue, and I'm going to pull it down because yellow is the opposite or complementary color to blue. Now that worked great for getting the hue right, but I think the lips need to be lighter as well. So here's where, instead of keeping this in the color blending mode, I'm going to switch back to the normal blending mode. I'm going to switch back to the RGB channel, and now I'm going to grab the white line of this and just bring that up a little bit until I feel like it's a little bit closer matching to the eyelids. This is where now, if I felt like I needed to refine this edge a little bit, maybe I want to soften that edge, I can do that by going in with a brush and kind of hand tailoring it. I also might go into the mask itself, double click the mask, and maybe add just a little bit of feathering to the edge of that selection so it doesn't seem so abrupt. Okay, using that same idea, I want to work on the eyes a little bit. And the things that I want to do with the eyes, I want to make the whites of the eyes brighter and whiter. They've got a little bit of a magenta cast. There might be a little bit of, veins, bloodshot kind of eyes, and not very bloodshot, but a little bit of that redness in the eyes. And then I also want to take the irises of the eyes and make them a little bit brighter and a little bit greener to kind of better match that sweater. So let's do the whites of the eyes first. And here's a case where, again, I could use the quick selection tool. Come in here, I want to go work with a small brush and kind of select these areas, and they're not going to be perfectly selected at first, but I can refine that once I get going. Whoop, that last one was way too much. Let's see if I can get just a little bit there. Okay, not perfect, but close enough to get us started. So now what I'm going to do, now that I have those selected, I'm going to also pull up an adjustment layer, but in this case I'm going to go to Hue Saturation. And in Hue Saturation, let me move this over just a little bit. The main thing I want to do here is to pull out saturation, because I want the whites of the eyes to be more white. What's keeping them from being white is some color. By desaturating the color, they become more white. I can also, just while I'm at it, use the lightness control and just boost lightness a little bit. Simple luminosity control, maybe not as precise as curves, but very simple job that we're doing here. I think that's quite good. Now, where that mask was not perfect, you might be able to see, like here's an area right here that got over selected. So how do I now get in and refine that selection? With that mask active, as you see it currently is active with the highlighted lines around it, I'm going to tap the backslash key. That is the key directly below delete on my keyboard. By tapping that once, I get this red overlay showing what is masked and what is revealed. And here's where I can go with a brush, the brush tool, and black or white, I can switch between the two of them to better refine this mask. When I paint black, that is further masking the image. That is going to look like red in this overlay. If I paint with white, which I can switch back to white here, or I can tap the X key on my keyboard, that allows me to reveal more of this. Now in tight little areas like this kind of sharp point right there, what I'll often do is reveal more like that, then switch over to black, which I just did with the X key, and remask the area that I want. So let's do a little bit more of this here, and I'm going to go with the white and then black. Shave that off. You know, the effect that we're doing is so subtle that you'd be surprised how imprecise you can get away with. And I'm just switching back and forth from white to black. Remember, where you see red, that's where I'm painting black, and where you see clear, that's where I'm painting white. So here's an area that I've got to fix with black to get myself that red overlay. And in these, maybe this area too. Now you can do this. I'm going to toggle the mask overlay back off. You can do it simply by looking at the image here. And you may be able to tell just as well. You may not be able to tell. So I'm going to keep this on. I'm going to switch to white and overpaint that, and then switch back to black and shave those parts off. And here again, white to go out to that area, and then back to black. Refine that off and turn off the overlay. Again, that's just simply tapping the backslash key a second time. You tap it once, it shows you the overlay. You tap it again, it toggles it back off. And once I have that mask done and I've had this adjustment done, I can always go back into this adjustment and do further. That's way too much, obviously, but if I want to reduce the amount of white, if I want to bring back some of the redness, why I would do that, I don't know, but I can still control that after the fact. Now let's do the same technique to perk up the irises of the eyes. So what I want to do now is select this area, which I could also do with the quick selection tool, but being that they're round, I'm going to take advantage of the fact that my brush is also round. I'm going to enter the quick mask mode with black as my foreground color, paintbrush, get in here, let's see how soft's my brush, and maybe go with a little bit lower hardness, and just one circle, maybe just a little bit bigger than that one. Let's go with one circle there. Good. And one circle here. Okay. Now you can see I've overpainted a little bit at the top and the bottom, but again, I can go now with a small brush and white, and I'm just going to remove that from the selection, what will become the selection. And now when I exit the quick mask mode, the irises are selected. So are the pupils in the center. We might decide to take those out of there in a minute, but for right now it's going to be good. I'm now going to start up a new curves layer. I'll keep the blending mode for the moment on color. And because I want more green, I'm going to go to the green channel. And I'm going to move that up. And we can see those eyes get green. Whoa, way, way, way too green, right? So, we don't want it that high up, but just a little bit, just to pick up some of the colors in the sweater. I think we could also stand to have those eyes just a hint on the blue side too. So I'm going to go to the blue channel and move that up just a touch, not as much as I did the green. And I think those eyes are a much better match for that sweater. Now, if I decide I want to change the tone of the eyes, the tonal range of the eyes, I could switch out of the color blending mode, go back to normal, go into this, and now work with the RGB channel, which is the white line here. Maybe I want those eyes to be brighter. Maybe I want those eyes to have more contrast, so a little bit brighter at the top, a little darker at the bottom. And now they really pop. A little bit of green, a little bit of blue, a little bit more contrast. And don't forget to rename your layers. I'm going to rename that hue saturation one whites of the eyes. And this curves layer, we'll name this one iris is greener. All right, and that's part 3.